Hello, Trombone Internet. This is Chris Van Hoff, assistant to the regional manager of the International Trombone Festival. We at the festival, of course, are huge fans of the pod, and we are really excited to invite you to attend this year's 2024 International Trombone Festival at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. Dave Begnosh is our host. We have the world premiere of a brand new double concerto for trombone and piano with the Fort Worth Symphony. We have the American Brass Quintet. We have late night jazz featuring a Latin jam session. Like, everything is happening. All the cast will be there. It's the best hang in the world, and we hope to see you there. You can register for the festival still online at www.internationaltrombonefestival.com, and it's happening the last week of May. So go register. We'll see you in Texas.
Welcome to the Trombone Retreat, podcast of the Third Coast Trombone Retreat. Today on the podcast, we welcome jazz trombonist, pioneer of the Shells, and trombonist of the Saturday Night Live band, Steve Turre. My name is Sebastian Vera, and I'm joined as always by Nick Schwartz. Hey, we're back. It's been a minute, but we're
back,
here.
Baby. We're back, baby.
We never leave you. Don't you worry. So I was walking around town after rehearsal a couple days ago, and I saw Steve Turre posters in every restaurant, and I had no idea he was coming to town. So I contacted him, and he got right back to me that day, and we talked on the phone for a bit, which was really cool because I'd never spoken to him before. And he was coming for a very short window and had just this really short window after arriving and going to a sound check for a show he had. And he graciously hung out with me, and we got to just talk for a bit. And it was really cool because I've been listening to him since high school, which he didn't love to hear because he said it made him feel old. But he's 74 years young, been playing in the Saturday Night Live band since 1984. Still playing. I think he's almost to his 40th season. Toured with Ray Charles around the world. Like, his career is unbelievable, and he was just a cool person to hang out with.
Yeah, I'm so glad that it worked out. It's very serendipitous that he was in town and also available to chat with you. I think that's really great, and I'm glad he was our first person back after a little hiatus.
Yeah, and he's super cool, and I tried to pretend that I was super cool as well. And then I got to hear a show that we'll talk about in the outro, but he's a real one, and it was really special to talk to him. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. We will also be making our third appearance at the International Trombone Festival this summer at the University of Utah. So come see us interview LA studio legends Alan Kaplan and Bill Reichenbach for a live recording on Wednesday, July 12th from 11:30 to 1. We're super excited about that. I'll also be playing the North American premiere of Thomas Borrell's Trombone Concerto Saturday, July 15th at noon as part of the Composer's Workshop. I was hesitant at first to add an extra thing, and then I heard the piece, and it's badass. So I'm really excited to play it. Also, we thank Houghton Horns for their continued support. They have new mouthpieces from Greg Black, Griego, and Ultimate Brass. They have the Shire's George Kern bass trombone models in stock currently. And also, my favorite part is they have these new t-shirt designs, one that says higher, faster, louder. And my favorite is the Mahler 3 jersey. So make sure to visit them at houghtonhorns.com.
And thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon.
Got a chance to sit down with Jim Nova the other day, the day after the Pittsburgh Symphony trombone audition, where after he got to hear probably 100 trombonists, to share with me like all of his thoughts on what he heard in the audition, what they were looking for, and what he gleaned from it. It was really, really interesting talk on Now Hearing Candidate 1.
If you're interested in becoming a patron, please visit patreon.com/trombone retreat. Please enjoy this episode with Steve Turre.
So it's been a long day already, huh?
Yeah.
Do you feel like the energy comes back right before the show starts?
Oh man, when you get out there and the people say you wake up.
That's the part people don't see is the early morning flights and taking a while to check into the hotel and the sound check being weird and
yeah, well, that's just part of the profession.
part of the profession, the less glamorous side. Well, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate you squeezing this in. So we're live. We're in Pittsburgh, and you're playing a show here tonight. I saw your poster on like every restaurant. I was really excited.
Oh, beautiful.
So we found a way to squeeze this in. But how are you feeling? I mean, how's this this show shaping up? Are you excited to play tonight?
Yeah, man. It's a good band, man. You know. See, the second set is 8:45.
Okay.
At least an hour. We play at least an hour for a set.
Okay. I'll be able to catch the second one.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Great. I did some deep dive. I tried. You have such a varied career, and you've done so much. So it's going to be impossible to talk about every single thing that I would want to. But
I probably forgot a lot.
So let's just start. Born and raised 1952, San Francisco.
What?
You're born in San Francisco in 1952?
No.
No? These articles are wrong.
Yeah.
I saw one thing that said Nebraska also. Is that the
I
correct
was
one?
born in 1948.
This thing's just off to the worst start.
Where'd you see that?
There was an article.
And what?
Born in 1952 in San Francisco Bay Area.
That's not Wikipedia, is it?
This is musicianguide.com biography.
That's wrong.
That's amazing.
I was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1948, even though I grew up totally in the Bay Area, but and my parents are from the Bay Area, but my father was going to Creighton University off the GI Bill after the Second War. I was born while he was in college, and before I was a year old, they had moved back to the Bay Area. So I just know I was born, and it says that on my passport, Omaha, Nebraska, but I don't know anything about Nebraska except I drove through it one time, and you could smell the pig farms from the highway, and there's corn growing for miles and miles and miles.
You don't strike me as a Midwestern guy.
Not at all.
So man, I can't imagine. Growing up in San Francisco.
Well, not in the city, San Francisco.
Just outside?
East Bay, Oakland
East Bay.
side.
Okay. I mean, what was your first musical experiences like? I see your parents. If this article is correct, your parents met at a Count Basie concert. Is that correct?
That's true.
That's awesome.
So my parents were into big bands, obviously. That was the dance music of their day. So we had big band music always playing around the house. And he liked symphonic music too. We'd hear some symphonic music. And they liked jazz too, but they never got past Louis Armstrong. They didn't get into Charlie Parker or Dizzy. They took me to see Duke Ellington. I started playing trombone in the 4th grade.
All right.
At Lafayette Elementary School. And the little town east of Oakland I grew up in was Lafayette, California.
Like 9 years old?
Yeah. And maybe when I was 10, they took me and my older brother to the Oakland Auditorium, and we saw Duke Ellington in person, 1957. So I guess I was 9.
Do you remember it?
Yeah. And because he had, it was Duke Ellington's band, and he had Ella Fitzgerald, the guest vocalist, and Coleman Hawkins, the guest soloist. Clark Terry was in the band at that time and played some great solos. Britt Woodman had taken Lawrence Brown's place as first trombone. Johnny Hodges, Eric Carney. Johnny Hodges played Prelude to a Kiss. I will never forget it. I haven't heard such a beautiful sound on the alto saxophone since. It really made me want to play this music when I heard that band, Ellington. You know, it was
9 years old.
Yeah, but I knew something. I didn't know what they were doing. It was way over my head, but I knew some magic was going on. Something about it. I knew this is some deep stuff. And I wanted to do it. And the thing is, well, it later on, I took some lessons, but my first teacher, he taught me to read, and he taught me articulation and scales and arpeggios, but he didn't teach me about breathing. And he had that old school thing. He said, smile when you go high. And I had to, later when I got to college, I had to totally change the way I played.
Do the opposite, yeah.
It was, it wasn't comfortable until maybe 10 years ago, man. I mean, after you're already out playing and then you have to change the whole thing and you're still playing at the same. I couldn't just stop playing and change my stuff. You know, I had to do it while I was playing. And it's, you know, when you're improvising, you're not thinking about that stuff. You just go into automatic mode. It's like talking. I'm not scripting or practice what I'm saying to you now. It just comes, and it's the same way when you improvise. You're talking, you know. So anyway, I played in high school and in the jazz band. And
what about the trombone made you choose it?
Oh, that's a funny story. My older brother played in a school band. He's 2 years older than me. And he come home with his alto saxophone and was playing, and I want to play too. So I went on the day they had band practice 2 days a week for beginning band, grade school. And I went to the band director and said, I want to play in a band. He said, well, what grade you in? I said, well, I'm in the second grade. He said, you got to be in the fourth grade to play in the band. Come back when you're in the fourth grade. So I did. And I went in to see his office, and he said, well, what instrument you play? I said, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. And they had 2 posters up on the wall. One poster was the orchestra, and they had the timpanis and the cymbals and the snare drum and whatnot, xylophone and whatnot, percussion. And then they had all the woodwinds and the strings, all the strings, and then the brass. And then the other poster was a marching band. And what's in the front row of the marching band? Because of the slide, the trombones. And for some reason, I just saw it and it took a liking to it. I said, I want to play that one. Little did I know. You know.
It's amazing how these like really small decisions that we make when we're like 9, 10. I was 11 when I chose. Like you would never imagine, like if I told 9-year-old Steve, like, hey, you're gonna travel the world, you're gonna play on television, you're gonna do all these things for the rest of your life. Like when you make that decision,
I had no idea, you know. But I think the thing that's kept me going is that I do it because I love it, not because I wanted to be on TV or, you know, have a name in jazz and all that. That's still not the reason. I do it because I'm kind of driven to do it. It's my life. I liked it from the beginning. It was always cool, you know. I always enjoyed playing music.
What do you remember from like when you were first starting to figure out the trombone?
Well,
what you enjoyed about it?
You know, they teach you these songs in band, and I learned them by ear before I learned them by looking at them. I learned, after I learned it by ear, then I made the correlation between what I was seeing and what I would play. But I was able to pick things up by ear right away. The first lesson, I remember I learned a little song by ear, and I went home and played it for my mom, and it was called Sweet Sue, Just You. It's ba bum 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 bo do boo 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 C G E flat F B flat B flat B flat. You know, I learned them notes the first day, and I just was able to go home and play for my mom. So I always had a knack for playing things by ear.
Don't you think that's a better way for young people to start, anyways?
Ultimately, even in the orchestra, a good friend of mine, Joe Alessi, and he said, you know, he's played all those pieces so many times. He look at it and then he know how it go. He just, that, and then he's just hearing it anyway, you know. Of course, when you're learning, you got to read it, you know. Some of these new pieces, oh my goodness, you need a slide rule to figure out how to break down the rhythms on some of this stuff. It's crazy, you know, these modern composers. It's not necessarily melodic.
No. I just think it's a fascinating way to think about it, because coming from a place where you're just hearing it, and I feel like for some reason, when you're not just staring at something and thinking about all these rules, it's like this other side of your brain where you're connecting more to the emotion or to the room or to the sound. And by like just having it memorized in your head and figuring it out instead of like staring, like what I do most of the time. You know?
But I mean, I think the trombone, it took me, you know, I played with Dizzy and with Woody Shaw and Rasan, and we played fast tempos and stuff. And, you know, I wanted to be able to play as fast as the saxophone and the trumpet and all that stuff. And, you know, now that I'm older, it's harder to play that fast. So your body slows down. But I'm 74 now. But it's taken me, maybe in the last 10 years, I've come to realize that the true nature of the trombone is a melodic instrument. It's like the cello. You know, sure, you can play fast on it. But look at, it's just like an orchestra, the cello. Sure, you could play fast on it, but the beauty of the instrument comes when you hear that tone and that oh, you know, that beautiful register. Same with trombone. I hear so many trombone players now in so-called jazz that they want to play a million notes, but they don't have no sound.
Yeah.
No sound or a fuzzy kind of unclear attack, you know. That's why J.J. Johnson was so fabulous, man. The clarity of his sound and the resonance. You know, I'm telling you, he will get a sound out of a King 3B silver bell that was as big as Joe's was on the symphonic horn.
And that's what I wanted to talk about. I read that JJ was a big influence, and I'd be curious when you first discovered him, but I really enjoy your sound, and I see, if I may say, like I hear so many JJ influences in it, because you have this like, I felt like if I had two words to describe your sound, I would say like fat but sweet. You know, like you have like color and sweetness and overtones to it, but there's depth and width to it, and that's something.
You know, I love the sound of symphonic trombone. To me, it's a majestic sound. It's warm and resonant, especially when a player is allowed to express their personality, which isn't always the case. When I was coming up in high school, I went to state honor band, and I went to regional orchestra too, not just the school orchestra. But they only got to play on one piece. The other stuff was Baroque music, and there's no trombone. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, let me go practice or go study some other subjects. I got homework. No, you got to sit here. Just bring a book. Sit there. You got to be. And you know, it was a waste of my time, and it was a turnoff. And I just I kind of lost interest. Plus, in playing in the jazz band, you get to express yourself, how you feel. You know, and I had a knack for that playing by ear anyway, so I just gravitated toward that. I remember playing my first improvised solos in junior high, middle school. There was Stanley Middle School. They had a real good band director, and they still have a good jazz program there. They had a jazz program in middle school at this one school. I just lucked up to happen to be there.
So was JJ one of the first influences you heard? Or?
I heard big band stuff.
Big bands.
And they, you know, one of the big band sounds of my parents' day was Tommy Dorsey, but I never liked that style of playing. I appreciate it. I like listening to someone else that could do it well. And I respect Tommy. You know, it's not easy to play that way. But that slide vibrato and all that stuff, and on every held note, it's just automatic vibrato. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that, so it never attracted me. I don't have nothing against vibrato, but I don't just automatically put it on every note, you know. And well, it's not easy to do what Tommy did. It's beautiful playing. It's just his style. But I never wanted to copy that style. Is use it as a model. My parents also said they never got to the bebop, but they were in the big bands, and they also liked Louis Armstrong. So we had a lot of New Orleans. It's a mistake when they call it Dixieland. There's some pizza parlor stuff from Chicago later on or something. It's New Orleans traditional music properly, and they had Louis Armstrong records, and I used to tailgate and play in that style. Those are the first solos that I took, was Saints Go Marching In and Tin Roof Blues, Muskrat Ramble, those kind of tunes. Then in high school, someone gave me a JJ record, and that was it. That blew my mind. I didn't even know you could play trombone like that. So I started going over there and trying to find out what that was about. And that started my journey, really. Because playing tailgate was kind of easy in a way, and it was fun. But JJ, man, that was some serious stuff, man. But it was, wow, how do you do that,
That I had a similar experience in high school. That's when I first discovered them, and that's when I would just sit in my room, turn the lights off, and just lay down and listen, and it changed my life.
You ever hear this record called Proof Positive?
I don't think so.
Oh, Lord. It's a killer. And if you can get it on vinyl instead of the reissue on CD, vinyl is always warmer and it gets more overtones, and his sound is just amazing.
It reminds me, I have a record. One of the bass trombonist in the Pittsburgh Symphony has one of your records, and he wants you to sign it for him. I'll try to bring it tonight. He was so excited. So when did you? Were there a point where salsa and mariachi became an influence as well?
I heard mariachi growing up all the time because it's in the family, Mexico. But.
What area of Mexico is your family from?
Well, it's all over the place. My mother's from Mexican descent. My father's Italian descent. So,
two very expressive cultures.
Yeah. And, of course, my dad liked Frank Sinatra, And my mom, besides traditional Mexican dance, she did flamenco, too. And she played piano.
Wow.
And she always had a piano in the house. We always had a piano in the house. Well, I heard mariachi music all the time coming up. But there's no trombone in mariachi music. There's trumpet, violins, guitars. The original bass guitar, guitarrón. That's the original bass guitar. Is in mariachi music.
Is valve trombone more like banda?
Yeah. Boy, some of them banda and the tuba players are crazy, man. A lot of energy them guys play with, man. It's ridiculous.
I think some of the best tuba players in the world are playing that stuff, and people don't know.
Ridiculous endurance and all that. Lordy. Anyway, when I first year of college, I started doing some salsa gigs, for lack of a better word. It's really Afro-Cuban music. And there was a band from the Bay Area called the Escovedo Brothers. And I started doing a few gigs with them. And of course, their daughter, Sheila E., is very famous now. And she was a little girl at the time, come out and run out during rehearsal, play on the conga, and then run away and giggle and stuff. But, she turned out to be a hell of a percussionist, man. And she worked with Prince and all that, but her father, I played with her father, and his brother, the Escovedo brothers. That was my first introduction to the Cuban sound, which is, I was just in Cuba this past January for the festival, and I didn't bring my band. I did that before. This time I went and played with the Cuban musicians.
Wow, how was that?
Great, it's fantastic, man. The level there is really high, man.
That's bucket list stuff before American culture messes it up too much. It's still like this.
Yeah, it's still it's still got the clave.
That's so cool. So you grew up in this, San Francisco 50s, 60s, 70s, man, so much
there
going
was
on.
Haight-Ashbury and all the rock. I saw all the rock bands, all of them. And,
like Janis Joplin was out there?
Yeah, I saw Janis Joplin. I saw the Beatles. I saw the Jefferson there playing the Grateful Dead, all before they was big. The Beatles were big, that's for sure, from the beginning, but...
that's a time machine I would like to go experience.
And I saw Jimi Hendrix. And,
really?
Yeah.
What do you remember from that?
it was. I never heard anyone play guitar like that before or since, but it was so loud my ears rang for three days. My ears was buzzing, man. I also played in high school. I started playing electric bass in a rock funk band. We played James Brown. We would play a few Beatles songs and whatever pop song. We write a few of our own tunes, you know. I started playing electric bass. And later on, I played bass with Chico Hamilton. Did a couple of records with him on the Blue Note label. I really wanted to play trombone. I ended up quitting and taking the gig with Rassan, Roland Kirk.
And that's where, and he was like, was he touring through San Francisco and he heard you, or?
No, he was coming through San Francisco. I went to hear him.
Oh, okay.
And it was a Saturday night. And I first gone to Sacramento State. It's called University now, but it was a college, Sacramento State College at the time. I drove down to San Francisco and saw Rassan, Roland Kirk. At that time, it was just Roland Kirk before the Rassan. And it was a fantastic experience hearing him play. And afterwards, he introduced the band and said, bring the kids tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock. We're having a Sunday session. Bring the kids down, because what the club did, and I wish more clubs would do this now, on Sundays afternoon, they'd have a set. And they wouldn't serve alcohol, so people were free to bring children to introduce them to the music, because they're not getting it on TV. You don't get it on TV.
No.
You know. So I went up to shake his hand afterward and just tell him I appreciate it. And I mentioned it to him. I said, are you having a session on Sunday? He said, well, it's not really a jam session. It's a matinee, so people can bring their kids. There's no alcohol. I said, oh. You know, Roland Kirk was blind.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And he played three horns at once, among other things. And he said, but do you play? I said, yeah. He said, what you play? I said, I play trombone. He said, oh, I like trombone. Why don't you bring it down and play for the kids? I said, really? He said, yeah. So I came. And we kind of clicked, you know. I listened and I phrased with him. So he said, why don't you stay and play tonight? So I stayed and played that night, and then we exchanged numbers. And when he come through town, I might get a call, you know, and say, hey Steve, it's Roland. What you doing next week? I said, oh, not much. What's happening? He said, oh, I'm at the Both Hand Club. You want to come and make it? I said, yeah. So I go play. I mean, he'd give me $50 for the week. I was a kid. I didn't care. I would have did it. I was 18, you know.
Man, what an opportunity, though.
Oh, man, I was like going to school for real jazz, you know. Anyway, that started that relationship. Later on, I when I came to New York, I joined his band permanently for touring.
Okay.
Up until he passed. In 72,
that was Ray Charles.
I joined Ray Charles and played with him for a year.
How'd that come about?
I had 2 gigs in my life I auditioned for. Ray Charles and Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
Everything else I got by sitting in.
And those auditions went pretty well.
Well, I got the gig somehow, but I got the gig. I'm still doing Saturday Night Live 38 years later.
Since 1984 is when you started. So I won't make you feel old, but that's the year after I was born. Well, I would love to talk about Ray Charles, because I can only imagine. So 1972, and that's like, he's pretty big at that point.
Oh, yeah.
So, and you went all over the world?
Yeah, it's my first time to Europe and all that stuff. Oh, yeah.
What do you remember from the tour? What do you remember from working with Ray?
Oh, it was amazing just listening to him play and sing every night, because he was a multifaceted artist, man. He played the blues, of course. He played rock, funk, country, you name it. Whatever, if he could hear it, he could play it. He was another blind master Woody Shaw was also legally blind. He had retinitis pigmentosa, tunnel vision. His vision was very poor, but his ears were amazing.
You have like a type of band leader there.
Kindred spirits, I think, of listening to the world of sound. I remember one time with Roland Kirk, when I did that gig in San Francisco at the Both Hand Club. And I had a little Volkswagen Bug at the time. And so I would give him a ride back to the hotel, after the gig. And one night at the gig, because we were at the club the whole week, one night he played, I guess it was an Ellington song. And I had played Tailgate, New Orleans style, and I had played bebop. But what came in between, chronologically, with the lineage, was the big band era, the swing era, and in particular Duke. And I hadn't really had experience in that. And so I was playing, and afterwards he told me, he said, we playing Ellington, play that style. Be yourself, but play that style. You was playing bebop, and it don't really fit. I said, well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. So he took me up to his hotel and said, come up, I want to play something for you. And he used to travel with one of them little record players about this big. And, those little ones, and it fit in a suitcase, and he had a few albums. And he put on this Sidney Bechet record. They had Vic Dickinson, who was a great jazz soloist. And he played In a Sentimental Mood. And he did all these inflections with the slide, but it wasn't slop like you hear guys doing with the slide today. It was deliberate nuance. It was deep. And I said, oh, yeah, I like that. But JJ said, but JJ nothing. He said, this came before JJ. You got to know the lineage. It's like in orchestral music, you might start with Bach, then you come to Mozart, and then Beethoven, and then way down the line, Stockhausen or something, you know what I mean, or Bartok. But you don't start with Bartok. You don't start, you know what I mean? He said, no, you got to understand the lineage, and you got to know where you're coming from to know where you're going. As far back as you can go will determine how far forward you can go as a connection. And so he put on his record for me, and I said, well, yeah, it's okay. He said, man, you try and play it. So I went and got the record, and it messed me up. I had to, it took years to figure out how to do that. And then we're sitting there, and of course he's blind, right? So he opened the door to the room, and you could see in the room because of light from the hallway. And he's blind. So you see that big chair over there? Go sit in that chair. He knew where everything was.
Yeah.
So I go sit down, he closed the door. It's dark in the room. You can't see your hand in front of your face. So I'm listening to all this music in the dark.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, I'm in his world. It's not, close your eyes, it's a world of sound. It's a world of sound. And I hear some machine noise, I don't know, coming from outside or if it's in the building, but little subtle things, he hears everything. And all of a sudden, after the record finished playing, he said, oh, you hear that? You hear that? I said, what? He said, someone's down in the alley rummaging through the garbage can. And I listened real carefully. Very faintly, I could hear it, but I wouldn't have noticed it unless he brought it to my attention. But in his world, every sound is present, I mean, he was attuned to sound. He was amazing.
You got an education.
Yeah, man. Big time.
Man, so how long, and that was Roland.
Yeah,
you're talking about
Russ on now. Yeah,
and how long was did you tour with Ray Charles? Was it just that year?
Just that year, and then after the tour was over, I came back to the Bay Area, and Woody Shaw had moved to the Bay Area during my absence during that year, and I went down to see him play because he was on that Horace Silver record with JJ on Cape Verdean Blues. And we talked to him, and we became good friends. And he introduced me to Art Blakey, who came through town, and Woody was on the gig. So I ended up sitting in, and Art asked me to join the band. And he brought me to New York. So I came to New York with Art Blakey.
And then everything changes.
And from there on, I've been in New York since the spring of late spring 73.
So you started in the middle, but then you lived extensively on both coasts, all the two crazy ends.
Yeah.
Before we talk about Saturday Night Live, when did the Shells come into your life?
Rasan, Roland Kirk. One of the weeks, it wasn't the first time I played the Botham one, maybe the second time. You know, he played tenor, mancello, and stritch, just like alto, tenor, soprano in terms of the keys, saxophones. He played them all individually and all at once, 3 horns in the mouth. He also played flute and did the talking in the flute. And he always had other kind of instruments. One time he came with a shell, a conch shell, and it was sitting there on the floor for, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So after the gig Thursday, I said, well, are you ever going to play that one? He said, I'll play when the time is right. Okay. So Friday night, it's a club. Anybody can walk in. So happens that this couple sit right in front of the bandstand, the front center table, right in front of the band, proceeded to get drunk as you can imagine and talking real loud, oblivious to the music. People was getting pissed off because they paid their money and wanted to hear the music, and these people was having this conversation. Man, I told you to take out the garbage. And the guy said, well, I did. She said, no, you didn't. You got and left it by the side of the car. You forgot to put it in the can.
Right in front of you.
All the, and they're talking, carrying on and shit. So he was tired of that too. So he picked up, now Roland Kirk was the champion of circular breathing, not Kenny G. That was a publicity stunt for his album release. He picked up the shell and started playing. He just held this note. Woo! I mean, a long time. Finally, they realized something was going on. They stopped talking. They looked up and they looked up all amazed and everything. And when they stopped talking, everybody in the club applauded, yay, it was one of those moments. And then after that, it got quiet and he went into this real pretty ballad on the tenor saxophone, it was a real magical moment. And the sound of the shell, something about it. I didn't realize at the time that was part of my cultural heritage. The Aztec, the Maya, all them ancient, the Inca, all those people also in Polynesia, in Africa, in India, all the warm parts of the world where the shells grow bigger, they play them as well as eat them.
So were they used for like communication?
Both, all of that. Ceremony, communication. Yeah, and they didn't have recordings, so who knows musically what it was. But we do know that it was communication and ceremonial. But anyway, I was mesmerized by the sound of the shells, so I asked him, well, can I try that? After the gig, we packing up. He said, yeah, go ahead. And I blew a note on it. I said, I got to get one of these. So I still got them. I'm going to play it tonight. My first shell I got in 1970. And my mom went to Hawaii, and I said, if you're there, pick me up a shell. So she did, and I still play it to this day.
The shells that you perform on, how much work is done to them to be able to
I make them myself. You cut off the end.
You just cut off the end, that's it?
No, it's sharp and jagged. It can hurt your lip. I smooth it out, and then I put plastic around it.
Okay.
Acrylic to build it up so it's the same all the way around instead of thinner on one side, thicker and all irregular and whatnot. And then I shape it with sandpaper and a file and whatnot so that it doesn't kill your lip.
Yeah, sure.
And then I make it about the same as my trombone mouthpiece.
Okay. And for our listeners that have never gotten to play one, how similar is the blow to a trombone?
It takes more air, but it's the same embouchure.
Yeah.
But a brass instrument, you got your rim and the bowl, but then you got the throat and the mouthpiece, which creates a lot of resistance. You work off the resistance. The shell doesn't have a throat. It just starts where it is. It's like a megaphone that's coiled. It starts there and it just continually gets bigger. So it takes more air.
So you're just amplifying like your buzz. Is it like a harmonic series, or can you just buzz any pitch?
No, it's got a primary tone. And then like a French horn, you put your hand in it, the pitch goes down.
Oh, okay. So you're like... Okay.
So you got the primary tone, and then you work down off of that. And then you can get octaves. Some of them you get a third, and sometimes overtones are out of tune. It just depends on the individual shell. You have to get to know each one like an individual and just work it,
Because like hearing you play it, I feel like it almost serves two roles. It can be melodic, but it's also like a percussion instrument in a way.
Well, everything
like
I do, even the trombone, everything I do is a rhythmic statement as well as a melodic statement and harmonic statement. It's in jazz music, what I call real jazz, rhythm comes first. And it comes out the African six. It's all based on African rhythm, which is a different flow. It's based on a triplet, not a duple meters. So if you got, say, a marching band, one of them bands like Guns N' Roses or something, it's all duple. That's all straight eighth notes. That don't swing. It's rigid, up and down, up and down. But the swing come from the African six, which is 2 against 3. So you got bang, bang, dang, 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 which is really 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And from that, dang, 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 dang. Now, swing, they write the drum part with a dotted 8 and 16, but that's wrong. It should be triplets. So it's a different feeling. It's more circular instead of up and down, and it breathes. So what I do is comes out of the rhythmic conception.
And with conceptions, I mean, you've kind of revolutionized the shells in so many ways, and everyone kind of makes their mark, right? You've created sounds that we talked about a little bit, but your work with plunger and in certain ways you do vibrato. It's just like it's like you can hear a record and I know it's you.
Yeah. And also another thing besides we're talking about that warbling sound.
Yeah. Describe that a little bit.
Well, I was listening to Lester Young. And he used to use alternate fingerings on the same note. And it go, that kind of sound. Benny Green approximated that with the trombone just through his articulations. He could do a one-note swing that would get house. But I was trying to do it with alternate positions, but it made a different sound that I liked, and I just used it. And say if I play a G in sharp second and a G in fourth and a G in sixth, I go dee 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 dee, but it sounds like just kind of a warbling sound, And the first time I think I recorded that might have been with Woody Shaw on the Moon Train record, but that's the shells. The first time I recorded the shells. I know I brought the shells to jazz as a solo instrument. First one was 1974, The Moon Train on Muse Records with Woody Shaw. That's documented. But that warbling sound I did with Cedar Walton, Soundscapes for Columbia Records. And it's a tune called Warm to the Touch. And I know a lot of other trombones are using that sound now. And also...
We got to pick a name. Got to pick a name for it. Just so it's like trademarked. Like the Turre warble.
But then I started using the harmon mute as a solo instrument and recording with that. And I haven't ever heard a trombone player do that before. I did. I'm not talking about with the stem-in and the wah, wah, wah kind of thing. I'm talking about the way Miles used the harmon mute. And if you play it hard, it gets real bright. You got to play it soft. Play it real soft and you get on the mic and it makes this sound. To me, it's reminiscent of Miles playing a harmon, but an octave lower. It's that kind of attitude sonically. That's another thing I do.
Yeah. Most trombonists, we overplay harmons, don't we? Most trombonists, we overplay harmons.
Yeah,
there's like a warmth to it, right?
Yeah, if you play it soft. But it's another sound you play it hard, too. It's
Yeah.
different sounds. You can get a lot of different colors. I like all the colors. There's a time and a place for each one. You know?
Yeah. All right, so can we talk about Saturday Night Live a little bit?
Yeah.
1984, you had an audition. How'd you hear about this audition? Did they just invite you?
I got a call. And they say, you want to audition? And Woody's band had just broke up, Woody Shaw. And so it's a good opportunity.
And how big was Saturday Night Live at the time? Was it just starting?
10-piece.
No, like the show itself. Like, was it?
Oh,
had it been?
Yeah, man. I came in after Eddie Murphy.
Oh, okay.
So
All
it
right.
was already
So it's
big established. Yeah. It was
So you knew what you were auditioning for.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What was the audition like?
Well, you had to come and read some charts and take a solo. That was it.
Basic stuff.
And it's a funny story. They had these other people, and they needed a trumpet and a trombone. All these other guys would come up and they play 2 and 3 tunes, and they play a couple of solos and choruses and everything. And then I auditioned with Earl Gardner. And we had both, although at separate times, played with Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra. But we played together with McCoy Tyner's big band and what's the other big band we played with? He was a great lead player. So we had played together, and I knew his phrasing and so I could play with him, So we went up and we played one tune, and we phrased right together and everything, and
Locked in.
yeah. And then I played about half a chorus, and the guy said, "Okay, that's enough." So the next people come on in. They said, "We'll be in touch. We'll let you know something." And the next people come in, And so we must have played about 3 minutes total, and we come down there, and we were playing with McCoy at the Vanguard that night with the big band. And so we went to dinner after. It was a late afternoon audition. We went to dinner before we went to the club. We were just talking to each other and saying, "Damn, what the hell was that about, man? We played about 5 minutes." And then later we both got the call. Say, I guess they heard enough.
They knew right away.
They heard what they wanted
That's
to hear.
amazing. That's amazing.
But it's because we could phrase together. It was a lock, So it's something to be said for listening to each other,
I imagine it's like clockwork now. You've been doing it so long. But
Well, Earl just left the show this year
oh man,
after 38 years. It's my 39th.
you've outlasted.
My 39th season. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. And it's comedy, so you're not just playing, you're laughing a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I see you laughing all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man,
Because you're like right in the shot normally of the monologue.
Not anymore.
Oh no.
They moved me.
They moved you. Oh man, I remember seeing you so much, just like cracking up all the time, and it's great because it's like you're laughing with the audience.
One of these stage handlers said that I'm too distinctive looking, and I draw the eye away from the guest host, and so they put me in a corner behind the drummer.
So you just gotta take that as like you're too good looking.
Well,
so you have to.
At first I was. I'll tell you something. At first I was a little bit put off by. I said,
Sure.
"Well, what's that about?"
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, my check is the same, and it's like I'm here in Pittsburgh this week playing my music off of my record with my band, And that's a different thing. I'm not there to serve my purpose. I'm there to serve the purpose of what the show wants. If they want me to play there, it's okay. I play there. You know, it pays my mortgage. I'm grateful to be there. It's a blessing. So, you know, I've been there and it's no problem.
So tell me a little bit about the day-to-day. I imagine you guys have been doing it so long that you probably have a really tight, like, do you have like a rehearsal?
The day of the show.
Day of the show?
New music every show.
Wow.
I mean, we have a book that's about this thick, you know, that they draw from. Probably over 500 charts, you know, over these many years. But, you know, we don't play the same stuff every week. Totally different music every week. And every now and then some new chart, and then some very often skit music that we have to either pre-record or play live at the show. It's always different. Every show is different. It's not like doing a Broadway show where it's exactly the same every night, and with the click track they use on Broadway shows now. Did you know that?
Oh, of course, yeah.
That's horrible, man. Yeah. I hate click
and they're
track.
often like in another room.
I hate the click track, man.
Yeah.
SNL now, when we play for real, breathe, the rhythm breathes.
And so you go to rehearsal and you know, like, okay, you're gonna have these transitions, you're gonna have like a 5-second thing, and you just like, they just call stuff out and you're just ready to go.
Yeah. I
know you typically had it seems like you always had a trombone, or maybe still have a little trombone solo on. Oftentimes they'll show, it was often in the TV Funhouse thing. You would have a thing.
That's no more. That was
a while ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah. But there'd always be a solo, like a trombone solo, like you ripping something, and then like the ambiguously gay duo or something, like right afterwards.
That's 10 years ago. They've moved on, new cast, so new skits.
But you also would have it seemed like, you know, when they have the commercial breaks where they'll just show a picture of the host, and usually like you'll hear you often play some.
Not as much anymore. Now, you know, I get a solo out front maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
That's cool. And it's just like, you just have like a few seconds, so you have to like rip right into it. It's not like you're setting up like
it's not about telling a story.
It's
about you put it in the pan with the hot grease. You're frying from the instant you hit the pan.
Ready, set, go.
Yeah.
So do you guys have your own like dressing room, like a musician's lounge, or like how? Well,
they used to pack us all into. They had 2 people, and the contractor and the band leader had one dressing room, and then 9 people had another dressing room that wasn't much bigger. It's the same as this room. Oh. It was really uncomfortable.
Studio.
In fact, it was smaller than this room.
Oh man.
It was totally uncomfortable. But when COVID came, we all got our own dressing rooms.
That's nice.
And we still do. So that's
good.
Yeah.
So is there any stories you can tell me, or any like, I don't know how much interaction you have with like the hosts or
not much,
the cast, or
not much, because they're busy and we're busy. And every once in a while I might say hi to somebody passing by in the hallway or something, you know. But
imagine you just see another celebrity every week. It's just no big deal after a while.
Yeah, we're all just human beings.
Absolutely.
There's a few memorable moments of meeting the guest host and actually having a minute to talk to them that just happened naturally. You know, I had a nice chat with Dolly Parton.
Oh man,
and she's a sweetheart, a real genuine person, man. Really loved her, man. She was so for real, down to earth, and also I'm a big Star Trek fan.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So I met Patrick Stewart and had a little chat with him. He's really a sweetheart, man. You know, Captain Picard.
Can only imagine the questions he gets on a normal basis. Okay, can I ask you some? We always close with some like rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Can I ask you a few? And it's okay if you have to think for a second. Okay, this is a question we ask everyone. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Self?
Mm-hmm.
Quit partying so much and practice more. You know, I think if I had spent half the time practicing then that I did partying, I'd be doing even more than what I'm doing now. You know, I would practice, but just the bare minimum, you know. And a lot of things came easy in a way, and I was just enjoying it, having fun, you know. It wasn't until later when I started having to pay bills and wanted to still play music to do it that I started to realize the importance of tightening up the loose ends, you know.
But you got to have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You're still having fun, right?
Yeah, man. Still having fun.
Can't wait to hear you tonight. Here's kind of an abstract one. What does sound mean to you?
Everything. First, what's the first thing people hear? The very first thing when you perform, when you play a note, they hear your sound. Now, if you got a good sound, you can play one note and make them feel something and touch them just with the vibration. And I've noticed it time and again, the greatest jazz masters take profound technical fluency like Charlie Parker or John Coltrane. They all had tremendous sounds too. So when they played a ballad, the tone was so beautiful and it would sing and touch your soul. So when they played fast, that sound was still there. But people, I hear so many young players today in jazz, and they're playing all these notes and they don't have a sound. And they don't realize now, but that's only going to get you so far. I found, just from observation, if you play something with a sound and play it simpler and just sing like you're singing instead of trying to play as many notes you can in a given space, that the audience will respond. That's why people, the shells kind of taught me that, because on the shell, I can't play a lot of fast notes. It's simple things. Each shell has a range of a fourth. So I have to play what I can out of a fourth interval and then change shells if I want to go higher or lower, a littler shell or a bigger shell, and work it that way. And so it forced me to play simple. And I realized that communicates with the people much better. You know, that people can give them time to feel your sound.
I love that. What recording, if you had to pick one recording you've made, I know it's hard, because I count around 18 albums at the minimum.
Yeah, 18 or 20, it depends on bootlegs and whatnot.
Is there one that you're most proud of?
Different periods of my career, because my music changed over the years to some degree. My very first album I still like very much. It's called Viewpoint. It covers a broad range of styles, from New Orleans to avant-garde. But then the next album that's out of print as well, it's called Fire and Ice, and that's straight ahead jazz with Cedar Walton, Billy Higgins, and Buster Williams, and now just quartet. And that was really, I'm proud of that one too.
All right.
But then going further down the line, I did these records for Verve with what I call my shell choir. It's a large orchestra. And well, there's two of them that are really stand out that I'm super proud of. It's Rhythm Within, that has Herbie Hancock and Pharoah Sanders, and also the self-titled Steve Turre on Verve that has J.J. Johnson on it. And Jay and I played together, and that was wonderful.
How special is that?
And then also on Verve, my last record for Verve was called Lotus Flower, and it's a sextet, but it's trombone, violin, and cello. And it's a unique sound that I'm very proud of, but I didn't get a chance to perform with it that much. You know.
You should.
And then, of course, the album I did for Telarc with Ray Charles playing piano. And then it was a three-part thing. For the blues and jazz, it was Ray Charles playing piano. For Latin and jazz, it was Chucho Valdez playing piano. And then for straight ahead, I had Stephen Scott, who was in my band, young player, very good, and Buster Williams and Jack DeJohnette on drums. And that record I'm very proud of. And then post that, my latest record called Generations, it for me is a very special record. I think it's the best record I've made in many years.
And you're going to play a lot of that tonight, I imagine.
That's what we're playing. Yeah.
Awesome. Semi-related, could you pinpoint a single performance experience that's the most memorable?
Oh.
That's a tough one.
Man, I've been playing since I was, say, 9 years old. Let's make it round number 10. And I'm 74, so that's what, 65, almost 65 years. One was playing with Dizzy at Royal Festival Hall in London. And that was, it's also documented on video, and you can see it on YouTube as well. That was a real special gig. Well, most of the gigs of Woody Shaw were special to me, and same with Ross on Roland Kirk, were really special.
The people involved make it special, right?
Yeah.
Okay, favorite monologue you ever heard? Favorite SNL monologue?
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Because usually they have cue cards.
Oh,
But they just say, okay, Robin, you're on. Go. And he goes out and he just starts going off, and he goes off, and it's hilarious. Man, he's like, his mind is just like, it's all over the place, but it's hilarious, man. How he can tie thoughts together. His mind was amazing, man.
Did you have a favorite cast member of Saturday Night Live that you enjoyed watching?
See, I've been there so many changes of casts over the years. I didn't really used to enjoy Adam Sandler doing Opera Man.
Oh,
that was always hilarious to me. Opera Man, that was a killer.
He had so many characters. It's crazy.
That was a killer.
I just saw his Kennedy Center Honors thing. He just got like the big comedy prize. They had it live on television. It was really cool. He was talking about all that stuff. Okay, there's a billboard that everyone in the world can see, and you can write anything you want on it. What would you write on it?
World peace. Stop the hate. There's one race, the human race. Are guns really necessary? There's enough food and wealth for everybody in the world if we would just share and care and respect each other.
Beautiful. Couple more. What brings you the most joy?
Well, I got several different times of the day, different aspects of life. Obviously, playing music has been foremost in my life for almost my whole life. So playing music with a good band is ultimately rewarding in unimaginable ways. But
you're playing with your son too, right?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, real cool. Real cool. Also, I enjoy my garden because I got flowers and, and I have pet tortoises.
No, you don't. Really?
Yeah, I got a bunch of tortoises, different kinds.
How many do you have?
See, I got 5 tortoises and 2 box turtles. The box turtles are native to here, but the tortoises are tropical.
Like how big?
They're varying size.
Oh, baby ones?
My Indian star tortoise is little. He's only about this big. But I got a redfoot tortoise that's about this big. And the one that's still growing, I got a sulcata tortoise. And it'll get real big. Not as big as Galapagos or nothing, but he get big like this.
And they'll outlive all of us, right?
Oh, he'll outlive me. I guess my son's going to have to take him over, give him to a zoo or something,
What about the tortoise?
I liked him because I've had a dog, but the dog, when after 16 years, he moved on. And I like dogs, but, you got to walk them and feed them every day, and it's a lot of work. The tortoise, several things. They don't make no noise. They're peaceful creatures. They're vegetarian, which means their doo-doo don't stink.
That's true. That's a good
They
point.
don't stink. And they take their time. They're just, they when I watch them, it relaxes me because they're so relaxed. That's why they live so long, you know?
It like reminds you to slow down, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly.
Wow.
And I enjoy doing things with my wife. You know, we go places. And we went to Egypt this last September, and not to gig, just to see the pyramids and the temples and learn about the culture. And it wasn't a go to the beach vacation. It was an educational vacation. They had a guide that was Nubian, and he was an Egyptologist, and he could read the hieroglyphics, and he would tell us on the temple walls what it was saying. And
They didn't use any shells in that culture, did they?
not that I know of.
Because they're, of course,
But they
not
had
ocean.
brass and they had bronze trumpets or something, copper
Okay.
trumpets.
Oh.
They did have the beginnings of brass.
Wow. Okay. All right. What is something that students, young players, young musicians, young trombonists don't do enough of that they should do more of?
I'm guilty of when I was young too. Didn't spend enough time with long tones. Long tones and flexibility, scales, and arpeggios. You can't get away from those four things, the basics. Long tones, flexibility, scales, and arpeggios. I mean, without that, you're very limited.
Do you have any regrets?
Like I said, not practicing as much when I was young. Things would have been easier for me now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for instance, to give you an example, when Marsalis came on the scene playing on a super high level, obviously whoever taught him from the beginning taught him correctly and taught him about breath control and embouchure and sound and articulation. I didn't have that opportunity. I had to get piece by piece along the path, and I'm still trying to learn, because that's the nature of any instrument, that we're all still trying to learn to better ourselves. And then I found I practice more now than I did when I was younger, just to maintain things, because your body slows down as the years go by. You've got to maintain. I got to spend more time doing it. I remember JJ telling me before he retired, because we used to talk on the phone all the time. He'd tell me, he said, it's just getting to be too much. I feel like a slave to the trombone now, because I got to put in so much time, and I don't want to be out there playing and say, well, I don't want to be hearing none of that. Oh, JJ played great, but he don't sound like he used to.
Yeah.
I don't want to be hearing that. So if I can't play on a certain level, I'm gonna, just write music or whatever.
Were you really close to him before the end?
We were. He played on my record, man, and we talk on the phone all the time.
It must have been a shock.
But not all the time, maybe every month or so.
Yeah.
And we were good friends. I was friends with Curtis Fuller too, and Julian Priester and Slide Hampton. I learned from all of them.
It seems like you had a lot of good friends that were
Yeah.
great people to be inspired by, and they liked being around you too, which has got to be.
I
a nice
listened.
feeling.
As they say, humbled myself before the feet of a master. I didn't go in there like I was hot stuff or nothing, man. I went in there to try and learn, and I had reverence for these masters before I met them. So, you can tell, even now when I meet young musicians, you can tell who's really serious and who's just in it to suit their egos. If you're serious, it's about the music and about the sound. I remember JJ, he sounds so beautifully, his tone. And I went to see him at the club one time. And I said, man, I love your sound. Man, how'd you develop that? And he said, oh, you can play long tones. Play them so soft it hurts. I said, what? He said, you heard me. And then he changed the subject. He said, hey, man, did you see the game Sunday? Blah, blah, blah. He just left me with that. He left me with
Plant
that.
a seed.
Yeah, he planted the seed. And then I came back to see him at the Blue Note in New York. I came back later in the week. And I went a little early. I want to get a nice seat. And I went up in the dressing room. I know he gets there an hour early to warm up. Always. Speaking of that, I got to start.
Yeah.
As soon as I walked in the door, and he had his horn, he was playing, he looked at me and he played a long tune, real soft. But even though it was real soft, it filled the room. It was just soft. And he looked me right in the eye and played that just for about 10 seconds. And then he said, hey, Steve, what's going on? That was a lesson. That was all I needed. That's how those level, they teach like that. It's not no take you by the hand and, all that. You got, ultimately, even if I tell you, you got to lift your diaphragm, you got to put your tongue here for this register, whatever, you got to figure that stuff out for yourself anyway. You got to put in the time and sit down with him and figure out how to do it. You got to put in the time. So all he did is plant the seed, let you water it. Mm-hmm. You got to water. You got to put in the time and figure that stuff out. I'm still trying to figure it out.
That's the fun part, though, right?
Yeah.
We're still figuring it out. Art is imperfectible, right?
That's right. It never ends.
That's the beauty.
That's the beauty.
So in closing, is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to say?
Can't think of nothing.
Cool. Well, I'm truly honored to hang out with you, and what a freaking career. I'm blown away, and I can't wait to hear you tonight, and just thank you for all your contributions to the music world.
I'll do my best. And
just happy. If you're having fun, then we're having fun.
I got to get a little something to eat, and I got to shave because I can't play with this stubble.
Oh, you do it completely?
Yeah, I put the horn part on the upper lip. If I got stubble, man.
I can see the line, yeah.
Yeah. The stubble interferes with the grip on the mouth.
Yeah, I haven't played completely without a little hair there in like a decade, so I'm afraid to do it now.
Well, if I don't shave, it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it'll affect my sound. It'll leak a little.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I don't use a lot of pressure, but I use enough to be able to put some air in there and get a sound,
What kind of horn are you playing now?
Yamaha.
Still, you've always played that, right?
No, I played a King 3B up until about 83.
Okay.
80, maybe 82. We were in Japan, and they gave Woody and me both Yamaha horns. And I've been playing ever since. But I have a special horn. It's a dual bore. The top slide is still small shank, 525. And then the bottom slide and the rest of the horn is 547.
That's where you get that fat sound.
And the small shank gives you a clearer articulation and a faster response. But the larger bore gives you a resonance. And I want the best of both worlds. That's what I'm hearing. So the horn helps me to get to that point.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And I guarantee everyone will appreciate hearing this. So
Beautiful.
very cool. So,
I'm so glad that you had that opportunity to meet up with Steve Turre, because he's a person I've idolized since I think I first heard him in college. That's probably true, but yeah, he's very unique voice, especially when you add in the shells. Who else does that?
I mean, that's his thing. He sounds great. He sounds great. And I had never heard the shells live, and he pulled them out during the last piece on the last set, and there's this big reveal, and he takes a cover off of them, and he's got 8 different sizes, and basically, yeah, he said each one is a fourth, and he uses his hand to change the pitches, and he's playing with a band. I'm way out in the audience. Those things are loud.
Yeah.
I would not, and it makes sense why it was historically a signaling device that cultures used, because man, and it's such a beautiful sound. It's so rhythmical, and he truly is a master at it. And it was profoundly entertaining. And he would play two at once sometimes and make like chords. And then he had this big reveal at the very end on the very last chord. He like reached under the table and he had this shell that was like 3 times the size of any of his other shells to play like the last thing. But everyone, he talks so much about sound, and how important sound was to him. And everyone in his group, James Carter, holy crap, I've been listening to him since he was a kid. That guy's from another planet. He sounded incredible. Everyone made incredible sounds. And he just had, I talked to him and he was so gracious. He had an early flight. He was tired. He's had to wait forever for check-in. And, he gave me his time. But after that show, you just saw this joy in his eyes. He was just lit up. And it's like he loves doing it. And, he doesn't have to. And he's like, he could just like chill and do his SNL gig and do whatever he wants, hang out with his turtles. he's making art. And it was just, I felt really privileged to experience it, especially in my city.
Well, we have something in common, Steve and I. I have played the shells.
Oh.
But only once. I played it on a piece by Revueltas called Los Noches de las Mayas.
Oh.
And there is a prominent shell part. And mainly it's pretty much unpitched, but there's a part where you have to improvise, both rhythmically and pitch and stuff. What it is there's all these traditional Mayan instruments that are in the percussion section. And in one of the movements, it's kind of like there's like open chorus, if you want to call it that, where each instrument has to take a solo to like kind of show off the instrument. And the conch being one of them. And so I got to experiment with that and had a couple different sized ones. I played it down in Huntsville, and the conductor came up to me beforehand and told me, be careful not to pass out. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to pass out. And he goes, I've done this piece a lot, and the conch shell player has passed out in more than one occasion.
Whoa.
Because there's a couple parts where you have to just play as loud as you can for as long as you can, like over and over again.
And there's
like
not a ton of resistance, right? So
there's like none. Yeah.
Wow.
It's sort of like buzzing the mouthpiece, just a little bit more resistant than that. So it's pretty open. But the thing that's interesting is if it feels weird to change the pitch without changing the buzz at all. Because if you try to change the pitch with your lips at all, like you would changing a partial on trombone, you'll lose the buzz. You have to buzz like straight down it and just trust putting in and out your hand, and that will change the pitch.
Oh, so you just keep the same pitch the whole time on. Wow, that's interesting. Man. Yeah, I mean, I hope he has some proteges, because he's incredible, and it really needs to pass down, because it works with so many things, and there's so many. I mean, really, he was telling me when we talked on the phone for a bit, there's the shell choir recordings he's made that he's just really, really proud of, that maybe weren't as popular as some of the other things he did, but just like really, really interesting things. Man, I would love to watch Nicky Pop improvise on the shells.
It was something, it was a weird thing to be up on stage, not with a brass instrument,
Yeah. Do you get doubling for that?
I did get doubling.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Cool. Oh, yeah, it was really cool. Jeff D, the bass trombonist of the Pittsburgh Symphony, is a huge, huge record collector, and he had one of his records, and he was still playing the end of the Pittsburgh Symphony concert. That I played on the beginning, so I was able to run over and hear the end of Steve's concert, but I brought Jeff's record, and Steve graciously signed it for him, and that just made Jeff's day.
Cool.
It was super cool. Records. He still makes vinyl pressings of his albums, which is really cool.
That's what all the hip kids are doing these days too.
It sounds better.
Sounds more authentic.
You sound authentic.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, should we dive into some trombone retreat stuff?
Oh, sure. Are we having a meeting?
Yes, we have a quorum. It's time for a meeting.
Okay. The two of us.
We're we're excited to be back doing this. Sorry, it's been a hiatus of sorts. It certainly wasn't planned. It's just Sebastian and I are very lucky to have been very busy recently, and hard enough to find time in one own schedule, and then you have to try to coordinate 2 schedules, and then you have to coordinate 3 schedules because you got to coordinate with the guest. And so there were a couple of failed attempts of trying to book someone for a podcast, and we'd throw dates around, and we think we get one, and then one of us would get a gig, and then, oh shoot, I forgot I have to do this, and it's like kind of fizzle out and say, all right, let's circle back in the future. So that happened a couple times, and then before we knew it, it'd been a handful of months. So that's certainly not intentional. We appreciate you all who listen, and hopefully understand that this is while it's something we love, it's not our main job, and so we gotta get out there and work to put bread on the table.
Man, we were hitting a momentum for a second. I was starting to get cocky. I was like, yeah, every 2 weeks, baby, doing it, real podcaster. And it's just, yeah. I mean, the cool thing is that these last forever. So it's like we build something, we record it, we edit it, we make it special, and then it's there forever. And I've noticed a lot of people have been going back, and it's crazy to see that still people are consistently listening to episodes even when we weren't putting new ones out. So that's cool. And, always feel free. There's so many in the archive now that maybe you haven't heard. And we're proud of all of them. So, but yeah, thanks for not forgetting about us.
Yeah. So I hope it'll make a lot of people's days when this pops up on your podcast feed as a new episode. Cause I know it will make our day that we're back at it, baby.
I remembered one last thing I was going to say.
Oh, cool.
About Steve. Right after the interview ended, he's like, have you ever seen my trombone? I'm like, oh, no. And he pulls out, he's got this custom Yamaha, and I took some pictures of it. Maybe I'll post it. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's engraved with his name down the length of the bell, and then his name in Japanese. And then all these custom engravings of meaningful things to him. He's like, oh, this part is the sea because the sea gives me life. And this is a dove that symbolizes blah, blah, blah. And there's all these really special things. And then he had a custom mouthpiece with it looks like diamonds surrounding just below the rim, around it. And they're like cubic zirconias, but it looks really cool. And he has a unique thing, because we talked about his sound. He's got kind of, a fatter sound, but an awesome fatter sound, but with sweetness to it is how I heard it. I don't know if you liked that description of it or not, but he's got his own sound. It's him, and he actually has a dual bore slide, which is interesting for a horn that size. So he has 5, whatever, a kind of King 3B size top of the slide, and the bottom of the slide's 525 or 547. Because he likes the clarity that he gets, but with the depth of sound, which I found interesting.
I think Slide Hampton did the same thing too. I think he had dual bore, and I want to say Mike Dees does that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I might be wrong about that. There's a couple out there in the jazz world that do that for the same reason. They want to have that flexibility and clarity that you get from the small bore like a 3B, but they want a little bit more depth of tone. And certainly with any change you make like that, you gain some and you lose some at the same time. So it's a balancing act. Oh, welcome to the Gear. Welcome to the Gear podcast where we talk about trombone specs.
We got to do that a little bit every now and then.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, for as much gear as I have, I'm not the type of person that knows the specs of my gear. I just know what I know what I like when I play it. It's like, oh, I like this. And it's like, I don't need to know the numbers because I won't remember. It's not like I don't care. Now, maybe I don't care. I don't know. But it's not one of those things that even means something to me because it's just like gobbledygook when it enters my ears.
I mean, you can go crazy with it, as you know. It's you have a balance of what feels good, what sounds right versus what am I thinking about in every little detail. I mean, it's good to have a balance of both. I'm just as a tease, I'm designing a mouthpiece right now with Houghton horns and through Pickett mouthpieces, and it's blowing my mind the amount of variables you can do, but it's also fascinating in discovering new things, and it's kind of a beautiful process. But you can go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can get stuck in the desert for sure. One thing I'm excited about, Nick, I definitely haven't told you this. I was talking to your lovely wife earlier today. I've been talking to her a little bit about this, but she wrote a new tenor trombone piece.
Yes.
And she asked me if I'd like to play it. And I just got to hear the debut recording by Kip Hickman, and I love it. I love it. I can't wait to start working on it. I think it fits me perfectly, and it's such beautiful music, as I'm not surprised at all. So I'm excited to start working on that.
Yeah, it's interesting watching her write this stuff because, like, I think the most successful works she's had, I mean, I've told her this too, so it might come off as harsh, but it's not. Like, sometimes she'll be working on something and there'll be kind of a rough sketch of it, and I'll be like, she'll play it for me, the rough sketch, and I'll be like, I don't know, like I don't hear it, I don't hear it, and then she kind of gets discouraged by that because sometimes she writes things and it's like immediately like, wow, that's something really great, something to build on. But with this piece, I was one of those. She was working on it and I was like, oh, I don't know. I think you need to go back to the drawing board a little bit. It seems a little like it just wanders. And then the next time she played it for me, it was more fleshed out and had a lot more development. And it was like, whoa, it really like took on a life of its own. And I was like really shocked, like how much it had grown. And, so like sometimes it like the best things that she comes up with start on kind of shaky grounds and then they just find their voice through the process. And I mean, I don't know how she does it. I can't compose.
Sure you can.
Maybe, I don't know. I feel like playing the piano is such an advantage when it comes to that.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, you have such a a visceral understanding of harmony because you play it all. I think that really helps with the process.
You just write only unaccompanied bass trombone pieces.
There you go. That's the future.
Yeah, the future. Well, I'm going to see you soon, hopefully. And yeah, I mean, grateful for playing the trombone lately. It's that busy season. Looking forward to summer. Forgot to mention, we're going to be at the ITF, the International Trombone Festival in Salt Lake City. Make sure you register. Make sure you visit. It's in July. We will be doing our third live interview, Trombone Retreat podcast live. The last couple of years, first year we interviewed Joseph Alessi. Last year we interviewed Christian Lindbergh, had an amazing turnout. This year we will be interviewing Bill Reichenbach and Alan Kaplan, just two legends of the LA studio scene that have done basically everything you could imagine. So it'll be cool. I think it'll be our first interview of two people at the same time. So it's kind of like a roundtable hang. And I imagine the stories they have are just going to be crazy.
Can I tell my random Bill Reichenbach story?
Unless you want to save it for when we're interviewing him live.
I'm going to tell him in person no matter what.
Okay.
I want to tell it now. Okay, so I like to watch random documentaries. I like documentaries. They make me happy. They tickle my brain. And so there was a documentary, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was based on people who their hobby is seeking out exotic fruits or just fruits in general. And
you told me this.
Yeah. And so I'm watching this documentary and like it's going around to different places in the world and to different cities in the United States. And then it's in LA and they're talking about this group that maps out like public fruit trees so that you can harvest fruit to give to homeless shelters and things like that. Like basically free food that's growing on public land that can be harvested. Really cool service. And it's like, it's beyond just gathering the fruit. It's like, it's a community activity and they take care of the trees and stuff like that. So they produce more fruit. Anyway, then it goes to kind of attached to that is this like fruit appreciation club where like different people in their own backyards grow exotic tropical fruits because you have the climate in LA to grow some fruits that you normally wouldn't find in the United States. And they meet up and they share their wares with each other. And it's at this meeting, and there's this guy with this gray ponytail, and I'm sitting there with Daniela, and I was like, that looks like Bill Reichenbach. And she's like, who's that? And I was like, oh, he's like this famous bass trombone player, studio player, jazz guy in LA. Cuts to the next scene, trombone choir, Bill Reichenbach conducting. It was Bill Reichenbach. Turns out he's like a fruit lover, and and he's in this group and loves sourcing exotic fruits from LA. So
everyone's got interests and hobbies. I love it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, all part of the human experience. That's my story. So
no, that's awesome.
When life gives you lemons. Oh wait, we got to do before we do that. We got to do the outro. The
oh shit! I forgot about that part. I gotta find the old version. Wow, I'm slacking in my old age. Have I mentioned that I turned 40 since our last podcast?
You are 40.
I am an old man. Okay, here we go. Okay. If you enjoyed the podcast, tell a friend and subscribe everywhere you download your podcasts. Also, please consider being a patron on patreon.com/trombone retreat and also leaving us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify, as it helps us out quite a bit. A special thank you to Houghton Horns at houghtonhorns.com for being a season sponsor. Follow us at Trombone Retreat on all the social medias, and our website, tromboneretreat.com, where you can also join our mailing list. On Instagram, follow Nick at basstrombone444 and myself at js.vera. You know, and write a rating review like one of our recent reviews. 5 stars. Subject, pretty good podcast. This is a pretty good podcast. The hosts are very knowledgeable. My only criticism is that there's a lot of talking. Sorry that this podcast has a lot of talking on it. Nick, can you just talk less?
I mean, I have other very refined skills like Appalachian clogging, scream singing from the Caucasus Mountains.
Oh, yeah.
And falconry.
Oh, another criticism is they seem to only interview trombone players. Maybe they could have some doctors or lawyers on. Again, I'm sorry that on the Trombone Retreat podcast that we interview trombonists. We really gotta.
We've had some doctors along the way. I mean, they're DMAs, they're not MDs, but we got some doctors along the way. I think. I can't remember who has a doctorate, but the professors we've interviewed. Yes. So take that.
Go. Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. And I could see a world where we talk to people that have adjacent things that are connected to what we do, or maybe more Patreon stuff, entertainment lawyers or performance psychology people. But yeah. But anyways, thank you, Drool Ghoul, for your comment. All right.
And if life gives you a sack of lemons,
take it to your exotic fruit group and exchange it for something more interesting.
Like a meme sapote.
Is that like a meme?
No, that's a fruit.
Is that like an NFT?
Yeah, sure.
And retreat yourself?
Let's go on and retreat yourself.